If
No,
you are not
sorry.
making money in your business, you don't have a business. And I have seen studio after studio go out of business because they don't know that principle and how to apply it. We cannot survive on drop ins alone. If you can cover your fixed cost with your unlimited memberships or your weekly memberships, that's brilliant, but most studios can't.
So it would be great if you could introduce yourself and just talk a little bit about what you do.
Sure. My name's Krista Daneluz Vieira, and I have a home-based yoga studio. But from having that, over the past few years, it's evolved into working with individuals at the studio and then beyond to basically support them in creating a life that really resonates with them. So I think a lot of us have a little bit of untapped potential inside of us where we hit a plateau and start to say, well, what else is next? What's more? What else can I achieve while I'm here? What if this is my one wild and precious life? What would I do with it? And so I've been seeking in my own life to maximize my potential and answer that question. And so now I work with people to help them discover that potential inside of themselves and help to answer that question for themselves.
Oh, wow, that sounds amazing. That's kind of beyond just a yoga practice on the mat and taking it one step deeper, which is probably what it's supposed to be anyway. For
You hit the nail on the head. Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's amazing. Looks like you're doing a lot, not just teaching, but like I mean, teaching yoga classes. But I've seen recently you've been talking about some retreat opportunities and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, like you said, yoga on the mat I mean, it's a powerful practice, but we know that when we leave the yoga mat, we have, if you have an hour-long yoga class, then you have 23 other hours in the day. And so the real depth of yoga and beauty of yoga is how it translates into how we live the rest of our lives, how we organize ourselves on the inside. And so giving people some opportunities to immerse themselves in really transformational weekends or week-long experiences is it's so powerful. And doing events where people have the opportunity to go much deeper than just the breathing and the embodiment of the physical aspect, that is so important. It's so necessary. It's so transformational. And that's not where it ends. That's where it begins. Now there's, how am I thinking? How am I acting? How am I connecting with other people? And that is really the culmination of yoga. And so it's become so much more than just a physical practice.
Yeah, absolutely. Which probably yoga is anyway, and those people who practices on and off the mat is usually are experiencing way more in their life, like exactly what you're trying to do and say is that they have an opportunity to experience their life from completely different perspectives, and that is a more fuller experience. Which well, being a yogi, like I've lived that life for many years, and it seems to be the way to go for me. So it's good to see like the purpose of what you're doing is a really good one. So thanks for sharing. Um, so I think what really got me curious is that recently we've connected on one of the it was like actually the random post I saw on Facebook, and I'm a marketer to my heart, but I'm also like a yogi who's been practicing for many years, been teaching for many years, but I think I stopped after a car accident happened about 8 years ago, I believe. Like stepped off the mat and stopped being like a yoga guide and more kind of transformed myself into my own practice and my own things. But with the same thing, I saw a lot of potential, on what is going on the market and how like a lot of yoga studios would need some help with like, promoting their classes and making like their studios thrive. So I stepped into that area, but I remain to be like the person who I used to be all those years. But what was really interesting, because I'll explain that from this perspective. I usually talk to the yogis and they have very little awareness about marketing. Like, usually they live very much inside their shell and they kind of just only are covered within that world. So I was very much surprised when we started the conversation. It was very interesting to hear your perspective and also see that you have that type of awareness about what is going on in the marketing world and overall, like some of the ideas or concepts that are kind of hot or popular right now. Can you tell me more about that side?
Lana, I love what you're saying. And like I feel like this is the the crux of the matter is, we go into running yoga studios or into creating yoga businesses because we love yoga and it is so transformational. And we want to share the benefits of this practice and the peace that it can bring us with the world. And yet, without a business awareness, so many yoga studios find themselves, striving and working so hard to create this beautiful business, but they don't have the principles or the background in terms of how to make it successful. And so many of the models that I see out there are based on models that don't actually work. And so I actually, like, a lot of my clients in the coaching world are yoga teachers or people who want to start to offer higher level programs, but they don't know how. In the 200-hour yoga training, that is the only minimal standard when you think of a physiotherapy degree or a chiropractic degree. 200 hours does not give you any training on how to run a business. And so unless you're coming from a marketing background or you're coming from a business background, so many people struggle to take their dreams and that beautiful ability that they have to hold space for other people and translate that into a viable business. And so I would say, like, for me, when I started managing yoga studios when I back in 2007. So my very first job after my teacher training in Vancouver was actually to go and start to manage a yoga studio. I was hired by my teacher trainer, and she had me work there, and then also to run teacher training events around the world. And from there, I moved out to Alberta. I also managed the yoga studio here for 7 years. And I saw from the side of the yoga teacher and also the side of the business what was viable and what was not.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really transformed my perspective. Now, to me, we really need to have a really solid understanding of what a marketing strategy is. What is the way that we're actually going to be able to attract people to our business? And how can we support them so that at the end, they walk away with the product? And the product is not the yoga class, it's the feeling that people have when they leave. It's that connection that they have with themselves and that ever evolving connection. And so that is a system that we want to implement and that we want to build our business off of. And then we get to experience this beautiful yoga that gets to permeate every area of our life. But first, we need to have a foundation. It's got to be solid. It has to be based on principles that create a profit. I hate to say it, but I don't
Yeah,
hate to say it. Sorry, not sorry. If you
not
are not
sorry.
making money in your business, you don't have a business. And I have seen studio after studio go out of business because they don't know that principle and how to apply it.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree with you. And thank you. We're opening probably a can of worms for many, like, because it's always
Yeah.
been considered that yoga is like anti money and all that, which is probably true in the ideal world where you don't need any money to live. Of course, why would you do it for money? But in the world where it's all, let's admit the reality, a lot of things are harsh and you have to pay for everything you have, including the most, like the biggest expense. I really find it interesting that a lot of yoga studio owners open their yoga studios, and I'm so happy to hear that you are actually doing it from your home, because the biggest expense that they have is that they rent and make an agreement for the next 7 years, and they rent the hall or whatever they rent the studio, and it's super expensive. That's the biggest expense in their business. And when it comes to marketing, the most often what I hear is that they say, but I have no budget for whatever, like marketing. That, which totally for me as a business person doesn't make any sense, because if you're paying money for rent, you should offset that same, at least with the same marketing dollars, and that's what should have been considered right in the beginning. And I'm not talking expenses like teachers and all the other things that are usually kick in as soon as you start not running all the classes by yourself. So yeah, that's the harsh reality, and I agree with you. It's an important work because I would love to see that evolvement, like really development in the yoga space. And finally, looking at things from the business perspective with your heart, it does not have to be the way, like, business is business, but yoga is yoga. And there is a way to combine both things and enjoy what you do. And I think if for those people who want to enjoy what they do, it's really important to grasp that concept because otherwise, they're running themselves and shooting themselves in the foot. Statistically, 90% of the studios close within 3 years or something like that. So it's really bad to hear.
Very high.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly what is happening. And I've been on that same path after having my own studio, after running my own ads and doing my own websites and all of that. But I'm a marketer. It was rather not that difficult, but it wasn't easy at all. And I realized that, oh my God, there's like so much more to just like opening the space.
I think having like a really clear idea as to what's going to be required of you ahead of time is so important so that you're aware of the workload that's going to take on behind the scenes before you decide to open your space. And also to, when I opened my studio, a big part of it was coming from a place of intention. What's the space that I'm hoping to create for people? Why do I want to create this space? Why is this important? And I connected my teachers into that too. I asked them what their intention was. We, as a collective, built an integrity for the people who are going to be walking in so that they actually had that. So you can create a business that has heart and soul at the center of it. We don't have to operate in cold and unmeaningful ways. And yet at the same time, we really want to look and say, okay, well, what is the required workload? What is the budget? Not just for my expenses, as you said, like knowing those fixed costs is really important, but also, how much income would I like to be earning? How much income do I need to earn and set aside to grow my business? If I have dreams of running teacher trainings or retreats, you often have to put down a big deposit for those retreats. So we need to be able to look at a bigger picture of what do we want this business to look like in 5 years? What actions do I need to take today that are going to help me to facilitate the growth of that business? These are really important questions that we want to ask, and we want to bring it from a heart space, not just from a cold business space. But with business, it's really a means of how do I organize myself? How do I organize who I am? And that comes back to the yoga question, who am I? How am I showing up? And Alex Hormozy, who we had talked a little bit about before, he would say that who we are is not just what we think, but it's what we do. It's how we show up. And so that if there's no differentiation between our behaviors in the world and that identity of who I am, then we really want to look at what am I doing today to create the space for people to come into to evolve and change and grow and transform and become their greatest self, their best self. And how am I facilitating that in a business sense and also in that heart and soul sense?
Yeah, yeah, no, totally. Like it makes a lot of sense to me, and I hope that conversation will spark some ideas in the heads of those who are just on the way there. It's a lot more to say about like really manifesting what you want to have and really putting that into action and having that reality of things happening. So that's probably a gap that is happening and the gap that needs to be covered. Um, so another interesting observation that I had, it's just more about yoga studios, if to talk about them, is just that a lot of them, like you said, maximum think about yoga teacher training as the way to kind of their high ticket product and are meeting a lot of other opportunities. So can you talk about this a little bit more? What would you see as
Yeah,
opportunities?
I love that question because I think that I see a lot of yoga studios open that don't have a higher ticket program. And my basis of understanding is that without tiered offers, without, workshops or, weekend modules that are going to be kind of medium ticket, without those higher ticket like coaching or teacher training or retreats, you are missing, we cannot survive on drop-ins alone. We cannot survive on drop-ins alone. If you can cover your fixed cost with your unlimited memberships or your weekly memberships, however you want to structure your memberships, that's brilliant, but most studios can't. And so I think that whenever you're looking at creating a business in general, but especially with yoga studios, it's looking at, what kind of systems can I offer? What kind of offers can I put out there? We should have sequential offers where somebody comes in the door and they get a specific offer. Now they've been here for 3 months, they get another offer. Now they've been here for 6 months. Now it's maybe a teacher training offer or something else. If they're going to continue on this path, we want to systemically give them the opportunity to keep working with us and to keep supporting them on their journey. We're not offering them something they don't want. We're offering them something that makes sense for them in terms of how they're growing and evolving and changing. And so we absolutely need to have higher ticket offers. It should be built into the model of business that we're running. If we don't have it, we probably are not going to be able to make rent. We are not going to survive that 3-year threshold at all. So I think it should be built in, intended, and part of the structure for sure.
Yeah, I like the ascension ladder that you just brought in. So it's super amazing that you also connected it with the timeline. That's probably like me as a marketer, we go low ticket straight to high ticket. But I really like the progression because I think it really suits the industry, like talking about yoga industry in particular and readiness for any type of deeper workshops, teacher trainings, retreats, all that stuff is definitely related to longevity and the retention. Um, I think that's super nice and systemizing that all and most likely like in the end automating that ideally would be really great. So that's a good model to be built on. But also the smart model I see is a lot of times is that I just see that a lot of yoga studios open their doors a bit too early. Like I really would just say go for a garage studio first. Just don't do any harsh moves before you have a really solid base for like for a studio to afford, especially if it has to be rented out, because that's the killer. Like in my opinion, the mindset, like my personal stake when I look at it all is just that a lot of them don't understand still old mentality, and I'm talking about not yoga mentality, but the business mentality here. Let me just open the doors and they will come.
Yeah.
And that's not the case anymore, like in the 99% of the cases, I believe, at least like what the majority of our clients are US based. So for talking about US and Canada as well, like Australia, we work a lot. Yeah, same. There's no difference. You can't just open your doors and really expect the traffic to rush in. No, and
I love,
a lot, yeah, surviving on the drop-ins. That's what exactly is happening. Paying the rent,
yeah.
surviving on the drop-ins, and that's not the business, and it's not, there is no joy. What I believe in is just doing everything with the joy. If it's not joyful, I'm not doing it. And that's kind of is the rule, just going away from all that struggle. But I see a lot of like yoga has to be surrounded with like all that in mind, yet there is a lot of strugglers. Um,
Mm.
in a space. Yeah. So yeah, thanks for that. That's really, really interesting. So any other tips like around like talking about marketing stuff? How would like those yoga teachers or yoga studios, what do they need to do in order to put themselves out there?
Well, I was going to say, I think, you having the marketing background have a lot of insight in terms of that too. What I can say from my end is that, nobody wants to be sold to. And so it's one of those things that we need to look at, how am I communicating the benefits of this practice to other people? Like, we know that yoga is good for us, so why doesn't everybody do yoga? There's some disconnect psychologically for people to understand, well, what is the real benefit? So when we start to talk about what yoga enables you to do, oh, you know what? I'm less reactive. I have less anxiety when I'm getting ready for my day. Opening emails, I don't feel so much stress. When I'm making my dinner, I feel really good about the healthy choices that I've made. I feel aligned in my life. We want to talk to people about the experiences that yoga makes possible, both on and off the mat in a practical day to day life. So I think that when we connect to the heart of people and the moments where people feel struggle in their life and start to illuminate for them how yoga can shift those experiences, how mindfulness can shift those experiences so that we're now the masters and the governors of our lives, not subject to all of the pushes and pulls of experience and the sadnesses and the ups and downs, but that we're the ones in the driver's seat. That starts to speak to people because everybody likes to be in control of their life. So I think when we look at marketing, we need to look at actually giving people the relevance of what the experience is going to be after the yoga class, not the yoga class itself. Nobody wants to pay for an unlimited membership for 12 months, but everyone would love to transform their lives in a year and be experiencing this state of ease and state of calm and state of control and state of balance inside of themselves. So that's the difference, I think.
Yeah, I think you're truly right on that. Like the transformation, but because I'm working with a lot of different clientele, and that includes fitness studios, not just the yoga studios. So transformation, as in weight loss, for example, is very commonly used as an example and a motivator for people who wanted to lose weight. And when it comes to the yoga terms, we're just not really translating that well, like, or communicating that well enough. And truly hitting that hard into myself because my yoga journey, that's exactly what it was. I have been transformed from, I don't know, sick person to a healthy person. And I'm talking sick and healthy from many different perspectives, not just physical, but emotional, mental, and energetic, and all the other layers that we have in the body. So it's kind of been such a huge transformation for myself that I became a deep believer into what I did, and I didn't need any other proof. So my 12 months membership came with all the experiences that I had. And what happened to me was just a really good example to what is happening to many other people. And we're just under communicating at a big time. Like a lot of these stories that need to share. And I agree with you, like just share the stories. It's so simple. Like talk about the experiences, make people who come to your studio talk about those experiences. Tell in reality what is happening. Like at least my yoga teacher used to really make me evaluate nearly every month to what is exactly is happening in my life, how I feel about it, and all that stuff that goes usually on the off the mat. But in fitness terms, that's accountability, like really understanding what kind of is changing in your body and whether you can attribute it to your yoga practice in any way. So that's what I used to do for some years, about 3 years. And it was brilliant because yes, I could definitely see and say I had so many changes in my physical body, I had changes in my moods and all that stuff. And I could reflect it back and just say, yeah, exactly, that's what I see. And that creates retention, that creates longevity, like in the memberships and all that stuff, but also in the marketing front end, it creates like the whole new level of communication. So I think as a marketer, I wouldn't say that we talk a lot about that because usually that's what we expect the yoga studio owner or the teacher who is the primary teacher to bring to us. These are the stories that need to come out. So my kind of for all of those yoga teachers and yoga studios out there, I want to say do not rely on the marketer to create it for you. You have to give it to someone because the job of the marketer, if you ever hire one, is to actually really put it out there, but they cannot make up the story for you. So you really have to find that emotional story either in yourself or in your students and show what exactly has been happening. And that's probably going to be one of the most powerful advertisements you can have, whether you do it organically or you do it through the ads. So that's very true. So thanks for that perspective. That's deep. Yeah, from my perspective, like if we talk about marketing, just in short, we more sort of specialize in advertising, and that is completely different story because you've got to make your money work. And in many cases, we're super limited to what we want to say and how we want to say things, but organically you can do a lot more, and that's not limiting to how you say things and how you position and brand yourself. So um, leaves a lot more space. I just want to say that just because on the ads, it has to make, for me, it always has to make financial sense. And the rest is like kind of, I cannot be bothered about putting something out there if it doesn't work. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. We can't spend money on that stuff. So, and
Hmm.
unfortunately, a lot of times I find that we have to find those adjustments on how it works, and just do what works. And then on the back end, that's the job of the studio owner to pretty much then communicate these stories via, like, there's a lot of methods and avenues that they can do it on their end, I believe. So, um, yeah. And can you just tell me more a little bit? Just heard about your podcast. We've been in conversation about it. Not that I really got the point, so it would be nice to would be nice to hear. What are you creating?
Yeah, this I'm very inspired to do this podcast. So I've been talking about doing one for a long time. And I think, in my world, I know I'm so inspired by the stories of women. And specifically, being a mom myself, I have two little kids, being a wife, a homemaker, and basically running three businesses on the side with the coaching, my massage therapy practice, and the yoga studio. I feel like after years of holding women's circles with one of my very good friends, and hearing the stories of women, we all have very similar areas where we connect on, where many of us don't feel like we're enough. Many of us feel like we struggle with confidence. We feel like somehow we're failing, even though we're really doing an amazing job. And so I want to connect with and highlight the stories of women who are just really killing it out there. They're doing an amazing job. They're bright lights shining in this world to remind all of us that we are doing such amazing things, that our stories and our journeys are meaningful and relatable, and that as we start to access deeper levels within ourselves and we start to believe in ourselves more and we start to challenge some of the stories that we might have subconsciously internalized as we were growing up, that
Hmm.
those beliefs are not true and they do not have to define us. And as we start to challenge and topple those beliefs, there's a part of us that starts to grow on the other end of it, where we start to ask questions like, well, what else am I capable of? What if the sky is not the limit? What if that's like the end of the universe? What else could I accomplish? And so just knowing quite a few women who are business owners, knowing quite a few women who have just transcended so many obstacles in themselves, but are still humans, still struggle, still have the same concerns we all have. I want to bring those voices to life, and I want to share those stories and share my own story as well. And with the coaching clients that I have, and doing the coaching, so much of what I've developed through the program, the elevation method, is really just about how do we meet these parts of ourselves that might feel unlovable or that we don't want to look at, and how do we integrate that so that we can step forward as a whole being and really set the bar for ourselves and break down the walls that we built around us so that our lives get lived completely and fully. And so the podcast is going to be called She Rises, and it'll be out of Alberta here, based out of here. And I'm hoping to do both audio and video, and put some of the YouTube videos out just so people can really connect with these women and see how amazing they are, and maybe in turn start to look in the mirror and say, I'm amazing too. I'm amazing too. We're all amazing. And when we start to celebrate each other and connect and share our stories, we start to rise up. We realize that we're the only ones putting a limit on us, and we are the ones who can take that limit off. So it's to empower people and to share those stories and let people know that they can do anything that they imagine. That's the purpose of it.
Sounds amazing, very juicy, and I think a lot of like inspiration comes from that. Like, that's gonna be a big source of inspiration, motivation, and um, learning as well. Because in many cases, I like listening to those stories, and just lately, like maybe in the last couple of years, I actually, even with my daughter who is homeschooled, we just I had an idea of why not to start study the biographies of people you want to know more about, because maybe previously it was like kind of not readily available, but now you can look it up and just see because I'm really interested and curious about what this person was doing, like what they were as a child, what challenges did they have initially, and how did they overcome those challenges. And it's been such a big inspiration, so I'm sure that it's going to be a great success. Um, and a lot of like learning comes from that side, and you can if you apply, of course, if you apply those things, that's definitely is going to be helpful to other women who are going to listen and participate. So it's a perfect
Mhm.
idea. It's a really good idea.
Thank
I'm
you.
gonna
That's the
support.
intention. And I love that you've homeschooled your daughter and have looked into biographies. It's funny that you say that because I read a lot of biographies and I'm fascinated by people's journeys and stories. And I think that we have a lot that we can learn about ourselves when we're learning about other people. And it's very inspirational.
It is, yes. So absolutely. Well, I think with that, my last question for today was, I was really curious if you help, like my audience, just so you know, the majority of those people are in business, and the biggest part of them are either in yoga or fitness related business. So do you help this audience in any way, or do you do anything, or you just more kind of focus on the yoga side of things?
No, totally. Yeah, I definitely do. I think, when I started coaching, it was actually more of a yoga teacher mentorship. And so the very first kind of foray into helping people was there was yoga teachers who had taken their 200-hour training, but hadn't actually started teaching. And there was like either a lack of confidence or I don't know how to take my experience of being a teacher and now like just going through that training program and how do I actually like start teaching and start making an income. And what I learned back then was that only about 30% of people who ever take their teacher training start to teach. And I really saw that as a missed opportunity because as we've discussed, so many people they want to have meaning in what they do in their lives. We spend so much of our lives working and contributing to the world. To do that in a meaningful way is amazing. So I wanted to give people the opportunity to do that. And I started working one-to-one with people, which quickly evolved into a group program. And then it quickly evolved into yoga studio managers contacting me saying, I have this studio, but I'm lacking in confidence, or I don't know how to approach the marketing, or I'm feeling overwhelmed, or I just don't know how to budget, or I'm not sure what offers to put out there. And one of the things that I also saw was that there was a lot of, ideas. People in business, we tend to be creatives. We have ideas, we have things that we want to do. And sometimes we have too many to choose from, and we don't know which ones to follow to fruition. And we also spread ourselves too thin. And so a lot of the work that I now do is actually coaching yoga teachers or yoga studio owners or people who want to build an online yoga business so
Mhm.
that they can create a plan, start to understand what it is that they need to access in themselves to bring that to life, and start to take intentional action. There's a lot of coaching programs out there that work with mindset and manifestation. And that's really important. And that is a part of my program. But that alone will not get you where you want to go. We also have to be willing to take concrete practice that's going to bring about specific results. And we have to take it outside of our current comfort zone, or we won't be able to bring that to life. So, if there is anyone listening who does, currently look at their circumstances saying, I love what I'm doing, or I'm not loving what I'm doing, but I would love to get different results than I'm currently getting. There is definitely a way to do that. And I have had coaches and mentors my whole life and am still in coaching containers. And what I can say concretely is that I achieve far more being in those containers where there's somebody who has a skill set I need or who has an awareness of where I'm going that I don't currently have, who can help me take those steps and actions that I feel uncomfortable taking or that I doubt are, is that actually going to work out for me? So when you put yourself into those containers, you definitely increase the likelihood of your success tenfold, like exponentially. So that's what I'm able to offer people is that opportunity to go from this is an idea, it's in my mind, or I've started my business, but I'm in the struggle and I don't know how to get out of it. If you want to be successful, put yourself in a container with somebody, whether it's me or anybody else, who can support you to achieve your dreams because they are possible. They are absolutely possible.
100%. Yeah, I love that. So, people, you just have to like really understand that you need to take action and you need to go and find someone who's already doing what you want to be doing and they are successful at it. It's so simple. It's so, so simple. Just take that action. And yes, I'm in the same boat, like in a way that I've always been taking training and I've always been evolving. But the majority of what I know and what I do actually has come from those people who've already been successful in that sort of area that I was interested in. And that's it is such a simple idea. And I don't believe and I refuse to believe into competition. Like one person, the experience that they will bring, it will be completely different from the other person. So what you're going to get from one mentor or coach or a program or agency or whatever is just going to be completely different from what you get from the other person or program. So as much
Mhm.
as you can. And our life is so short, so taking action is the key, right? So how many times do we like procrastinate, delay, think about it? I really like to joke a lot about let me think about it because a lot of people say that, especially when
Yeah, I have a little sign on my desk that says, just wait while I overthink about it. You know, and I think like being able to recognize those patterns in ourselves and start to realize, you know, we, like you said, life is short. So do we want to live any ounce of unlived life potential on the table? How much of that do we want to look back at life with regret? How much do we want to look back at life and say, I wouldn't have changed anything. I took the chances, I took the opportunities. I asked myself what I was capable of and I lived into it, not because I wanted to achieve something in life. Like, we don't get to take any of this with us, but because I wanted to activate a part of myself that's latent, that's under the surface. I wanted to see what's really possible when I lean in with love, when I lean into this life and say, what's possible for you, what's possible for me. We're all here together. So this is our opportunity, really.
yeah, agree. Totally. So love the conversation. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it a lot. It was great to kind of know you a little bit better, and I enjoyed it. That was really, really awesome. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for having me. And I'm hoping to have you on my podcast at some point soon.
Yes, please. I would love to. So whenever you kick things off, yeah, just let me know. I'll be there.
Sounds great.